So yeah, you can get that weight up by bouncing it off your chest, but it's going to be, it causes that shock to the joints, the ligaments and stuff like that. And it's typically when somebody will get like a a pec tear, or they'll injure their shoulder or something like that. That's usually what happens when you're doing that. So it's better actually in terms of building more muscle, building more strength, to just be more controlled, pause it at the bottom, and obviously you're probably going to lift less weight in the movement when you do that, but you're going to be actually achieving the primary goal of lifting, which is building more muscle and more strength in the long term. Hello, Aaron Kubitz, personal trainer, Functional Aesthetics EC, helping average guys perform better inside and outside the gym. In today's video, I'm going to be just kind of recapping some of my training that I've been doing, so basically another training vlog. This one's going to be a combination between deadlifts, incline bench presses. So the key points that I'm going to make in this video is just kind of showing you how I do my deadlifts, how I set up for the deadlifts, how I brace with my breathing, the timing of when I do all those kind of things. The other thing is, you might notice it's just a bunch of heavy singles, right? Pretty much I'm doing one rep. I do a slight ladder up and then I go back down, and kind of the reason for that. After that, going to be doing some incline bench presses. Incline bench presses are kind of a good exercise just for if you are you want to hit the upper pectoral fibers. It's also actually, and that's what it's most commonly used for, right? Because you're doing a flat bench press, you're going to hit all areas of your chest. But if you are doing more of a decline, you're going to hit more of your shoulders, also more of the lower pecs as well. And then if you're doing a flat bench press, it's going to kind of hit everything. Incline bench press, obviously going to hit your upper pectoral fibers, and that's what most people use it for. However, it's also good. Varying different degrees of bench press angle can help you to get a stronger overhead press as well, simply just because overhead pressing, if you're doing it right, a lot of times people think you have to be completely straight like this. Actually, if you lean back slightly, right, and you have that spinal stability or that kinesthetic awareness, right, to be able to control that motion, you have to almost come back a little bit, right, press it off the chest. So you're actually using more of, it helps you incorporate more of your upper chest fibers to get it off, and then once you get to the top, then you're pushing through like that, right? So incline bench pressing can help a little bit with your overhead press strength as well. And the last point of the video is basically talking about how a lot of times if you're doing any exercise, but particularly in this video, I'm pausing at the bottom. So you can like kind of just go up and down, right? If you're going, and that's fine, right? But from time to time, I actually find that if I just come, if I've been stuck at a certain weight for a period of time or something like that, or a certain number of reps, instead of one way to kind of break through that and also to actually recruit more muscle fibers as well, is just to pause at the bottom of the rep before you come back up. So bring it down, pause for a second, push it back up. When you pause, it actually increases the stretch in the muscle fibers a little bit, which, and that's why actually a lot of times if you see if the weight is a little bit too heavy for you, you can kind of bounce it off your chest. But the reason you don't want to do that is it actually is worse for building muscle because you're using momentum to get the weight up, and it's a lot harder on your joints. Okay, so as you probably noticed in that previous clip, the way that I like to set up for the deadlift is I like to take a deep breath, go down, raise the hips up. Actually, a lot of times I'll actually let it out again once I get to the bottom. And then as I'm raising my hips up, I like to breathe in. I then like to protract my shoulder blades, right? And then while I'm holding the air in, I retract the shoulder blades down. So retract and depress them, so that you're stabilizing your upper back, right? Keep that, you don't want your, a thing that happens a lot of times is as you're getting towards the top of the movement or whatever, or you get like halfway through your deadlift and you start rounding over. So setting up like that can help to keep your upper back nice and stiff. Also doing exercises like front squats can help to strengthen your upper back in that thoracic spine area and stuff, so that you're not gonna be folding as much when you're doing your deadlift. So that's how I do it. So hips up, taking that deep breath in, holding it as I drop the hips. So going from hips up, protracted position, to dropping the hips, retracting, then driving through the middle of the feet. So the first part of that deadlift is actually almost like doing like a squat or like the hip sled at the gym, you know, when you lay on your back and you're just pushing the weights up and down or whatever with your feet. So that first part of the deadlift is very similar to that. So you want to be actually using your legs, your quads and stuff quite a bit at that first part. And that's why actually a lot of times when people will get up to about the knee area or whatever, if your quads are weak, a lot of times what happens is your knees will lock out like this and shoot back behind you, and that's actually a pretty good indicator that you don't have enough quadricep strength, and then it shoots all the load into your lower back rather than putting it through the hips. So if you notice that as you're coming up, you're locking out prematurely, then you might want to work on doing some front squats, other exercises to strengthen your vastus medialis and stuff like that. Just overall more quadricep strength will help you in that portion of the deadlift, so it's gonna not be as hard on your back, and you'll actually be able to lift more weight because you'll be using more muscles and especially your hips to do that. So that's the one thing. Once after you get past the knees, then it's basically you're dragging that bar kind of up your thighs, right? And then starting to extend the hips. But up until it gets to your about your knee level, it's very similar to doing a squat when you're doing your deadlift. So then this whole time I'm holding my breath in, right? And when I get to the top, you let it out, and then depends, like if it's early in the morning or something, or if you've been sitting for a long period of time and you're just doing warm-ups, and this is why it's kind of important to do the warm-up. A lot of times when you lift that weight up, if you have been sitting for a while, you got to do a couple breaths before you let it down, right? Because you'll feel much more out of breath. You got to work the oxygen through your body and stuff like that, and you'll feel a lot more of that. But I always do at least one, so I exhale at the top, and then I always do at least one inhale, and then hold it as I'm letting it down, right? Because you want to make sure you're keeping your spine stiff as you are lowering the weight to the floor. And one way to do that is doing what this is called is Valsalva maneuver, where you're essentially holding that oxygen in. It's going to keep your whole thoracic region and your spine and stuff like that nice and rigid and stiff as you're lowering that weight down, which is obviously what we want to do. The other thing is, as you're lowering it down, the first thing you want to be doing is kicking that butt out behind you, right? Versus just bending down to the spine. That's something a lot of beginners do, is that you get it up here and then you kind of almost let gravity take over. You don't want to do that. It's a really good way to get injured. So you want to be making sure that you're kicking your butt out first behind you, and also making sure you have a lung full of air, or at the very least breathing in as in the very top portion of the movement, and then holding it until you hit the floor, and then let it out, breathe again before your next rep, and repeat that cycle. Okay, so when I first started designing my own programs, my main focus was that I wanted to make sure that everything was very balanced in nature, right? And one of the reasons for this was that so when I was probably like junior high through like early part of high school and stuff, I was a long distance runner. I did a lot of running, I played a lot of soccer, a lot of basketball, endurance athlete, right? Got injured, and that's how I ended up getting into weightlifting, just because I was trying to stay fit while I was injured and couldn't do some of this running activities I was doing. Fast forward, I ended up getting some really bad digestive issues and lost about 30 pounds of muscle, and that caused me a lot of problems, set me way back in a lot of areas of life. And so when I got to designing got into like natural bodybuilding and researching how to lift appropriately and stuff like that, I was very, I guess you'd say, cognizant of the fact that it's very important to I didn't want to injure myself like I saw a lot of people doing, because they didn't take the time to build a properly balanced program. So one of the things that you'll often do so you'll have workouts where you're doing pushing, you have workouts where you're doing pulling, and you also have like full body workouts where it's a combination of everything. And this is if you have more time to train, or you you can't train as frequently. Or if you're a little bit older, or if you just want general fitness, full body workouts tend to be a little bit better. Workout splits where you're doing pushing, pulling, or legs, or upper, lower, those kind of things, are more popularized by bodybuilders who are looking to get a little bit more training volume in, and they didn't want their workouts to be taking 3-4 hours to complete, and so they'd split it up over several days, and that way they could get more volume in. So typically when I started out my pulling workouts, or my back workouts, would look like starting out with deadlifts, and I do Romanian deadlifts or one leg Romanian deadlifts, and then I do barbell rowing. I'd do some sort of either pull-ups, lat pull-downs, and then add some abs, one arm rows, things like that into my program to kind of round it out well. Now, as I started lifting heavier weight in the deadlifts and stuff, what I noticed is that I actually didn't feel the need as much to do a whole lot of more isolated work from my upper back, because when you're lifting a really heavy load off the ground, and that's one of the benefits of a deadlift, and why, whether your goal is to build more muscle or to get really strong, or to even lose body fat, that deadlifts, provided you don't have back issues that would, contraindications for doing that, that deadlifts are a really good exercise to incorporate into your program, because they're going to hit most of the major muscle groups in your body, and as a result are going to boost anabolic hormones, which are going to be beneficial for building more muscle. But at the same time, they also burn a lot of calories. So if your goal is trying to lose body fat and stuff, we know that you can't really spot reduce certain areas on your body, and so the best way to lose body fat is to just enter this calorie deficit and burn it everywhere. So typically where you're going to lose body fat is you're going to lose body fat in your extremities first, right? So your arms and your legs will tend to get lean first, and then the last parts you're going to lose body fat, and this depends on gender. So wherever, like women, younger women tend to hold body fat in their hips, butt, and thighs, and guys tend to hold more body fat either in the chest or in their love handles and in their belly and stuff like that. And so those are going to be usually the last areas where you're going to lose the body fat, but you can't spot reduce them by doing more crunches or whatever the case may be. You have to just systemically lose it all over the entire body. So I actually find the best exercises for losing body fat are exercises that incorporate the entire body to some degree, and that's how deadlifts are actually very useful for that. With that being said, if your goal is to build a little bit more muscle and stuff, we know that intensity, or the amount of weight that you're lifting, right, is a key determinant of building more strength, right? But it's not necessarily the best for building bigger muscles. It can be a component of that, because at some point you do need to get stronger if you want to build more muscle, right? However, you will see guys that are pretty strong, but they don't have bodybuilder kind of muscles, right? In fact, sometimes they'll actually be stronger than these guys who have bigger muscles, and the reason for that is because they train in a much more intense way. They're lifting heavier loads. In fact, there's this guy that I've seen on Instagram a couple times, and very impressive. He's not much bigger, if any bigger than me. He's actually probably he's probably about the same size. I think he's 189 pounds or something like that, right? Maybe a little bit shorter than me or whatever. But he's, doing, snatch balances with like couple 100 pounds, and I saw him do like a 425 or something like that. He was like a 425 back squat or front squat or something like that, and it was pretty impressive, even though he's really doesn't look like he has these big bulging muscles or anything like that, but the way he trains makes it so that he can lift a lot of weight. So if your goal is though to build more muscle, you are going to want to work on incorporating more volume into your training, meaning more reps, more sets, more load. So you're going to be probably lifting more total weight in the course of the workout, although the amount of weight that you're lifting from rep to rep, from set to set, will probably be lower, but the total amount of weight in the course of the workout, just because you're doing more reps and sets, will be higher, and that's what we refer to as volume. So I say all of this because that last one that I did was the barbell row, right? So the barbell rowing is good exercise for, depending on how you do it, either building your rear deltoids and your rhomboids up in between your shoulder blades, or if you use a more shoulder width grip, it's great for building up your lats. So depending on what your focus is, most of the time I use pull-ups and lat pull-downs and one-arm rows to build up my lats, and so I don't typically use my barbell rows for that. So I use a little bit of that wider grip, almost the same grip that I use for my bench press, to do my bent over barbell rows, so it hits more upper back and rear deltoids, which is more of the focus and the reason why I use it. Now, as I said before, a lot of times if you are in a pinch, you don't necessarily need to be adding more barbell rows on top of the deadlifts if you're doing these really heavy deadlifts. And so in this workout, I threw one set in just because I felt like I need a little extra stimulus, and in the past I probably would have put an additional couple sets on top of that. But in this scenario, like I said, sometimes when you're lifting those really heavy weights, you don't need an additional stimulus on top of it, unless, of course, you are having more of a bodybuilding focus of just building more muscle mass and size. Alright, so coming back to the incline bench press, not a lot to say here. However, there are a lot of similarities between incline bench press and a regular bench press. The one thing is that if you arch your lower back a little bit and stuff, it helps you to actually set that bar a little bit back so that its angle, I like to think about it as if that bar is almost passing like through the nipples and back into the shoulder that way. Even though it's anatomically not possible to do that, but it feels like if I'm doing that, I'm tipping up that the weight is directed more that way. That helps to actually screw in and build a little bit of torque in the shoulders. It also helps to position the head of your upper arm bone, your humerus, into the glenohumeral joint a little bit more appropriately, so that you're less susceptible to injury and you can actually get more leverage and produce more strength out of the bottom there. So give that little bit of an arch, thinking about tipping your shoulders back, bringing your shoulder blades down and back as well. And then when you get to the bottom, as you're coming down, breathing in, and like most exercises, on the eccentric portion or the lowering portion against gravity, that's where you want to be breathing in. Again, as I said at the beginning of the video, you probably want to, if your focus is to really try to, break through a sticking point or focus on increasing the muscle mass a little bit, you can pause at the bottom there to allow the muscles to stretch. I always try to, in my bench presses and stuff, unless I'm trying to set a PR in the bench press or whatever, I usually try to come to the bottom, feel the muscles stretching on every rep at the bottom, and before I'm bringing it back up. Another way you can do it too is pause for a second at the bottom, bring it halfway up, pause again, and then bring it all the way up. Do a couple regular reps, and then maybe add another rep in there as well. And this varies from day to day. I actually tend to do it just when I have that feeling in my body that this is what I need, because there's definitely times when that's not appropriate. I would say that the times when it is more appropriate is if you are on a bulk or something like that, when you have plenty of glycogen in your muscles. It's not very good technique for if you are more cutting or you are in a depleted muscle glycogen state, because then you just don't have as much energy and you're not going to have as much stretch in those muscles as well. So it feels a little bit redundant to do it. Like if you're doing these pauses or whatever, and you don't feel that muscle stretching additionally to how you would otherwise, then I'd say just forget about it. But that's what I was doing here. I actually found that it seems to increase muscle activation a little bit more, and increase just your end range strength, which I believe is very important for preventing injuries, aside from increases in muscle strength and size, which I do believe that this technique can actually help you to achieve as well. Now granted, increases in muscle strength or muscle size are not going to happen if you are not eating enough protein and especially calories. So, you can see I'm not a super huge guy. I'm not a bodybuilder. I did add about 60 pounds of muscle from 145 pounds after I lost 30 pounds. So I graduated high school with 175 pounds, lost 30 pounds of muscle, back down to 145, and then at my heaviest I got up to about 210 pounds, and I was below 10% body fat when I was at that weight as well. And so you can build more muscle and everything doing these things. I have some experience building muscle, but again, a lot of times, especially guys in high school and stuff, and they'll be paying a lot of attention to how much they're working out, all this volume, how the workout is designed and stuff. And a lot of times the determiner of how big the person gets is how much food are you eating. Are you eating enough food to get to the size that you want to get? And so generally that's about 20% more calories than you need to maintain your body weight. And so eat that for a while, and also don't be afraid to gain a little bit of body fat, because a lot of times you see these guys in these muscle magazines, and these guys are shredded, right? And they're also very massive and huge. And so these kids, they're like, I want to get big, and I want to look like Arnold, or I want to look like Ronnie Coleman, or these guys and stuff, right? Or currently, I want to look like Liver King, right? And everybody knows, well, Liver King, he was on the steroids and stuff, right? So the thing is that as a natural lifter, and there's a reason why these world's strongest man, or the elite, the super heavyweight strongman competitors and stuff, they aren't ripped. They carry a little extra body fat on them, because the bigger that you get as a natural person, as a natural lifter, the harder it is to keep your body fat percentage down. This is why, you'll have a long distance runner, and he's very lean, but he's also very skinny. It's very hard to get both, be very big and very lean. You're either very big and also have a little bit of body fat on you, or you're very skinny and have very little muscle fat or muscle mass on you. All right, so there are those things to consider as well. But as you're don't be afraid to gain a little bit of body fat. However, if you're getting much above 15% body fat in your bulk and stuff, I would dial it back a little bit. Start focusing more on your proteins, dial back your starches and your sugars a little to allow yourself to lean out a little bit, and then you can proceed that bulk again. I would never really start a bulk if you are not 10% body fat or below, because it's going to be just more easy to gain fat if you already have more fat, and you're also going to be not as insulin sensitive. So meaning that, and a lot of times guys, after they diet down for a bodybuilding competition and they've really been restricting their calories for a long period of time, when they go back to normal eating, sometimes they'll add on another 5 pounds of muscle just by eating normally again, because their insulin sensitivity is so high. So as far as the building muscle thing goes, you can do all these techniques, you can do all these different workout strategies, all the perfect workout designs, take all the supplements and everything, but if you're not eating enough total calories, you're not going to get bigger, you're not going to build bigger muscles. Which is actually good news for any ladies who are watching this, is if you're worried about getting bigger from lifting weights and everything, if you increase your cardio at the same time, or if you just keep your protein levels pretty constant, and then just reduce your starches and your sugars and your total calories, that will help you to get very strong without getting much bigger than you are, and you'll stay lean but getting stronger. And in essence, being like these guys in high school who are like, man, I'm getting stronger in the gym, but I'm not getting bigger. Well, the reason you're not getting bigger is because you're not giving your body enough calories to get bigger. Alright guys, that concludes today's video. Hopefully you got some value out of it. A lot of random information tucked in there, but that I thought was relevant to the topic at hand. Actually was surprised I got all that information out of just talking about deadlifts and incline bench presses. But again, hopefully you got some value out of it. If you did, hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you are interested in information like this about workout design, building muscle, cutting body fat, nutrition for performance, fat loss, or muscle building, as well as how do you prevent getting injuries in the gym, because an injury can set you back several months or maybe completely derail your fitness journey depending on the severity of the injury. So how do we prevent those from happening in the first place? A lot of it comes down to having a balanced workout design. The other one is if you do sustain an injury, because almost all of us are going to get injured at some point. If you spend enough time in the gym, if you spend enough time working out and different things like that, you are probably going to get injured. Because, but what I like to say is I would rather burn out than rust out, right? It's better to actually do something with your life than to do nothing for fear of actually of getting hurt. And life is inherently dangerous, and so if you are always trying to avoid any sort of danger in your life, you're probably not going to have much of a life at all. So if you do end up getting an injury, I also have some stuff on this channel about how to work around those injuries if you do get them. If any of that kind of information sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing to the channel by hitting the button in the lower right hand corner of the screen, I believe. And we'll see you all next week for more health and fitness information.